All right, everyone, it's your favorite pal, Scott Winterroth, and I am here because I want to um, talk about WordPress 5.1. But before that, let me invite some people to join this cast. So hold on. Just as a quick reminder, you can always go to this Facebook group quickly by going to wordmentor.com. It just redirects directly to this group, so you don't have to type it in the URL bar. All right. So, WordPress 5.1 came out this week. If you're not familiar, WordPress 5.0 was a major release candidate, aka Betty. If you're not familiar with sort of how the WordPress scene works, each release candidate is named after a jazz artist. So, Betty is the sort of jazz artist that this release honors, if you will. This goes back to many, many years. The very first couple versions of WordPress, Matt Mullenweg started naming them after jazz artists, so here they are today. But either way, WordPress 5.1 is a major release update. The first major update since WordPress 5.0 came out in the beginning, I think it was actually at the end of 2018. And now we're looking at 5.1, which at the end of the day is really just a minor update. I know it's a major update. There are some major improvements, but for most users of WordPress, most day-to-day users of WordPress like you and me, WordPress 5.1 is sort of like more of a back-end update. There should be some improvements to the overall speed and enhancements of the new drag and drop block editor that you probably have used, the aka Gutenberg editor. But for the most part, 5.1 is just a good old update that kind of keeps WordPress in line, in my opinion. I'm looking at the blog post on the WordPress.org website that talks about what came in WordPress 5.1. So if you go to WordPress.org/news, so you just go to the homepage. If you go to the blog on WordPress.org, it will take you to the most recent posts, which is actually like a loop. And then once you click on the title, it will take you to the full page of the WordPress.org. So on here, they give you a little quick summary. Primarily, they talk about some of the major core features. As I already started to mention, editor performance is one of the biggest ones. Obviously, they're doing everything they can to collect sort of bug reports and to collect information about how people are interacting and getting feedback on the new WordPress block editor. So obviously, 5.1 addressed any major editor performances that came from people using WordPress on their websites and live websites. Another thing is a new site health feature, which basically starts to show people if you are using a server with like a really old or outdated version of PHP. The current version of PHP or the current recommended version of PHP is like 7.1. A lot of servers are still running PHP 5. Whatever. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me know. I'm happy to talk about it more. But ultimately, what you'll need to do for a situation like that is contact your web host, whether that's GoDaddy, SiteGround, Bluehost, whatever one of those hosting companies are. Contact them and say, hey, I'd like to upgrade my PHP because WordPress is asking me to do that. Now, before you do that, you have to understand that not everything you have on your website, especially if you're using really old plugins or maybe a custom built theme that was built decades ago or years ago, may not be compatible with PHP 5.1. So it's good to sort of know what you're doing before you go into that. If you're using like a standard sort of theme, a theme that's regularly updated, you're using pretty much regular plugins that have been around for a while, then you should have no problem updating to 5. Or to at least 7.0 or 7.1. So do it at a time where it makes sense. Maybe don't rush into it, but always know that you might have to go back to a previous version of PHP if your site isn't compatible. I've always updated, and there's only been 1 or 2 times where I've had a site that's had incompatibility because of PHP. So I would go ahead and just do it, but it's up to you. And then, of course, there was a bunch of other sort of behind the scenes or back end additions to the WordPress 5.1 software. None of this really is anything that most regular users have to worry about. The only one that's kind of cool is the cron API, which the cron is an interesting little thing. It's something I've learned about over the years. Basically, your WordPress site has like an internal clock, if you will, right? It checks for updates, it checks for plugin updates, it checks for when posts need to go publish to your site. So, for example, you schedule a post to publish tomorrow at 6 a.m. Well, it's a long story and I can't explain it perfectly, but ultimately the website checks the server every so often. It pings the server to get the time, right? And sometimes those cron jobs, that's what they're called, cron jobs, C-R-O-N, cron jobs, they like fall off the earth or they just stop working or your server stops sending them or something like that. There's always some type of little thing that happens. Well, this new cron API is going to help that. I think I've had websites over the years that sort of have like fallen asleep because the crons have stopped running. So this is an opportunity, or the cron API is just a newer way of approaching cron jobs. So I'm excited to see how this works. I hope it works better, especially with newer versions of PHP. But this is something that I'm excited to see. And again, it's hard to explain to just everyday users, but if anyone who's used WordPress for a long time, you probably have run into a cron job issue over the years. So this would be something that's actually music to my ears, if you will. And of course, there's a couple other little things here that, that these are all very important things that help fine tune WordPress to make it awesome software. But, to the everyday user, it's not something that you care. Just know that they help make your website better. Finally, they always like to post who contributed to this software update, because as you mentioned, as I've mentioned over the years, that WordPress is not software that is owned by any one particular company, yet it's the people who contribute to the software that benefit from it. And these are the people who have contributed to the software and have put back into what they've taken away. And as you can see, lots and lots and lots and lots of really fantastic people have contributed to this update to WordPress to 5.1, and I thank them for that. I'm giving you the thank you emoji. I thank them for that. Right? So again, if you want to check out this post for yourself, go to WordPress.org and click blog. You'll see it's the first post as of right now. So go check that out. Finally, I thought I would give you a little bit of an update, like in how to, like what happens when these updates come, if you haven't done this before already. So this is the back end of my blog. This is WordPress.org, a WordPress.org website. This is my blog. This is like just my personal little sandbox site, if you will. And what happens when there's a major update, you'll notice in the toolbar, there is a little like update icon, right? And even when I logged into the dashboard, I get this like alert. Right, just like a warning alert. It says WordPress 5.1 is available. Please update now. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to update. So I'm going to click on update, and there's a couple of things you should consider before you update your WordPress site, and that primarily is to backup. You need to make sure you back up your website. I'm good because my website is backed up daily on my server on SiteGround. So SiteGround does a rolling daily backup of all my websites. So if I need to like fix something or go back to yesterday or go back to this morning, I can just roll back my website. So I know I'm in the clear. There's many ways of backing up your website, and I've written like 100 posts over the years on how to back up your website. If you're interested in learning more how to do that, I will post it into the comments of this live video after I'm done. But most importantly, before you do anything, you got to make sure you update, or not update, you got to back up your website before you update. Typically, like there's three types of updates here. There's the update the core software, which is up here. It says an updated version of WordPress is available. You can update to 5.1 automatically by clicking this button. Then it's saying there's updates to plugins and there's updates to themes. So I typically like to update the plugins first, because if there's an incompatibility issue with the new version of WordPress with a plugin, then if you already update it, it should be compatible with the new version of WordPress when you update WordPress, if that makes sense. So I usually update plugins first. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I see a SiteGround Optimizer plugin needs to be updated. So it's going to go through that process. All right, that's done. All right, it says all updates have been completed. Now I can return back to the WordPress update page. I see I have some themes that need to be updated, and themes are always something you want to do with caution. If you have any customizations to your theme, or using a custom theme, or using a theme that's quite a bit older, you definitely need to back up your work before you update it. But since I'm using themes I'm using the Divi theme by Elegant Themes, this is something that gets updated all the time, and every update brings usually enhancements and improvements, just like all the WordPress updates do, like I just explained a few minutes ago. So I'm going to go ahead and update them automatically because it usually is a good reason to update. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let that update. All right, all set, good to go. And finally, now that I have all my plugins and themes are up to date, I'm going to go ahead and upgrade WordPress. There it goes. All done. Click here. Boom. 5.1. It gives you a little bit of an overview of what came. It basically is that blog post I showed you. And then you can read a little bit more. But that's it. My site's good to go. It's always a good thing to check to make sure everything's copacetic, right? Everything still looks the same. After it loads, yep, site still looks like it did before, which is good. So everything went well. So that's basically an overview of WordPress 5.1, aka Betty. And then that is how to update your website when a WordPress version comes out. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that was useful. If it was helpful, please like and share this video on Facebook. And if you have any questions about WordPress or you need some help, you know who to talk to. All right, thanks.